Hello, my friends. This is episode 26. It is a series of stories that I'm doing to show how long it took me to deal with my mental health correctly and how I made a million bad choices and how God, at the conclusion of it all, came to my rescue and showed me the correct way to deal with my mental health. And then, aside from just that, he also helped fix a lot of the terrible outcomes that my bad choices made. So all glory to him. So here we go. I said last time that I finally pulled into my parents' driveway. I still had $40 in my pocket, and that wasn't the only miracle in this whole story, this whole journey home. The other miracle was that my car had pulled into my parents' driveway. That alone deserves a monument in the hallowed halls of God's rescue mission in my life. It seems absurd, but please, indulge me in just a quick recap of just how pathetic this car was. After my girl magnet Chrysler K car finally had enough and died on me, I bought a Dodge Daytona off a used car lot. Oh my goodness mercy, it was pure garbage. I mean, the coolest thing about this car was the headlights popped up like Knight Rider when you turned them on. It was like, hello, like, whoop, and that was the coolest thing about it. However, because I would never trust this piece of junk to make it all the way back to New York on my second summer trip, I asked if I could borrow my buddy's car. He had a really nice Honda Accord. I mean, it spoiled me rotten. Ironically, my buddy, he rear-ended somebody at the bottom of the off-ramp close to home in Denver, while I kept his beautiful car pristine during my entire 4,000-mile round trip back to New York and back. He jacked up one of my lights so they never closed again. The coolest feature of my car was now broken. An old friend of mine in New York, when I came back and stayed, he made a comment. He said that my car looked like a sad puppy who couldn't blink anymore. I want to show you just what he's talking about. So, see how dinged up it is and all banged up and how it's all crooked and looking so sad. Poor little guy. And then can you see this beam right here in the back? That's there because my emergency brake didn't work anymore. So it would have ran off on me if I didn't have to constantly keep it propped up. Anyway, this is the car that April's father was constantly fixing. This car did not have cruise control. So for my entire trip back home to New York, I just set up, I stacked several pillows so that my right leg could at least be comfortable as I drove home. Very fun, very interesting thing about this car that after the only one little cool feature about it, my fun lights, after that broke, I unwittingly discovered a new feature about this car that I didn't know about, and that became the cool feature about it. The center console cover, it popped off, like where my stereo was and my vents and all that. I don't remember how I discovered this, but once you pulled that thing off, it gave you full access to the vents. This is where I hid my pot whenever I was driving around, just in case I ever got pulled over. So one more quick story about this car. When I was still living back in Denver, I was hanging out at the mall, and I think I was waiting for April to get done with work or something. I was at the mall by myself. When I came out, I discovered that my car was missing. Now, I know where I parked. This was not dude, where's my car? This was not that scenario. I was not that high. I knew where I parked it. So April she had to come pick me up and take me home. When I got there, I called the cops because I assumed that somebody was just desperate enough, they had to steal my pathetic one-eyed car instead of any one of the many numerous luxury expensive cars strewn all over the parking lot. The cops were like, no. Nobody stole your car. It was repoed. This is 2 cars that I had repoed in the span of 2 years. However, unlike my Pontiac Sunbird, where I didn't put any effort into trying to get back, I desperately wanted to get my Daytona back. You know why? Because I had just gone and bought a big bag of pot and it was still inside my secret compartment. Priorities, right? I went to the dealership. I talked to the guy who sold me the car, and we worked out a payment plan. This guy was very cool. He liked me. I liked him. There was no problems. There's no hard feelings whatsoever. He said that once I got the bill current, I could then have my car back. So I'm like, all right, I'll do that. I'm like, hey, while I'm here, do you mind if I just kind of get some stuff out of my car before I leave? He's like, go ahead, fine. So he kind of followed me out to the parking lot, but stayed back and nonchalantly watched me, whatever. He didn't really care what I was doing. I, however, was being all, secretive and being like a super spy, pretending to grab random stuff. But what I'm really doing, I'm kind of like looking back over my shoulder, pulling off that center console and getting the pot. I obviously did get the payments back up to date, and because I obviously drove the car home. So back to my car, making all the way to my parents' driveway. As I said, this is nothing short of a miracle. I kept that car going for a few more months until it finally pooped out on me for good. The engine had seized up. Guess why the engine seized up? I never checked the oil, let alone change it. Old Blinky was running dry for who knows how long. I used to be so terrible with car maintenance, and thankfully I am marginally better at it now. So after that car died, my next car back in New York, the next car was going to be a teal Ford station wagon Escort. You best believe I had the ladies lining up to ride in this car. No, they didn't. My good friend, he gave it an ironic nickname. He called it a sex court because it was the furthest thing from being sexy. It was just whatever. It got me around. I was thankful enough for that. So, all right, enough about cars. I want to talk about another very important key factor in my life that has always played a huge role in keeping me from putting a gun to my head. That is cats. I am an unabashed, obsessive cat lover. Anybody who knows me will quickly attest to this. Cats have always been there to help me deal with the madness of my mind. I'm pretty sure I got this love of cats and animals in general, really, from my mom. Sadly, however, it was discovered very early in life that I was terribly allergic to cats. So we had to give up the cat that we had at that time when I was young, and we didn't get another one until shortly after we came back from New Jersey. Now, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm pretty sure that my mom desperately needed a cat after all the horrible things that I went through and the family in general endured in our time in New Jersey. I know this much. I desperately needed a cat to help me heal. I started getting allergy shots shortly after we got the cat, so it was no longer a problem for me. That amazing tabby cat that we had from New Jersey, that boy, oh man, he was an incredible source of comfort to me. I have so many stories I could tell about how amazing he was. I absolutely hated leaving him when I went away to college and then the military and then finally Denver. God knows about my need to always be around cats because he gave me that need. When I first moved to Denver and moved in with that dementia old lady's house in the ghetto, her cat was there waiting to help me adjust to the upheaval of my life. April, she had a cat, and that cat and I, we quickly bonded for the time that I was living with April and her family. I loved that cat. Leaving that cat was part of my sadness when I left Denver. But now I'm home, and my wonderful childhood cat, he was there waiting for me. And he was really old at this point, but he had lived a long and wonderful life. He died about 3 months later after I came home, and when I tell my story, I've always said that God allowed him to hang on long enough for me to come home and for him to do his job, which has always been to help me cope and deal with the never-ending madness swirling around in my brain, which, trust me, it was working overtime when I came home. God knew I was going to need that old cat to help me get through those beginning stages of the withdrawals from the drugs and the life I was living. That cat lived well. He did his job well. He earned his rest, that's for sure. One of the saddest but yet sweetest memories I have post-Denver is my mom and I tearfully burying that wonderful tabby in the backyard. See, she was in agony too because she was also carrying something that I never knew about until I got home. she was carrying her own mental health struggles. Like me, my mom has wrestled with her own darkness for much of her life. Also like me, we grew up in an environment where mental health was extremely taboo and absolutely not talked about it. But, however, unlike me, she had to suffer with it for far longer than I did. My mom has always played a key role in my life, for better or for worse, and she had to endure the struggles of her depression and mental struggles for roughly 40 years before she finally got the help. Not surprisingly, God knew all this beforehand and was uniquely preparing her to be the one who would finally solve my lifelong conundrum. All the reasons, all the things that was going on in my brain, why I did the things I did. I could not understand why I would feel the way I would feel. It was my mom. She was the one that unlocked that mystery for me. I remember sitting down with her post-Denver and her telling me that she finally decided she was no longer going to be controlled by the fear and anxiety of people finding out about her struggles and that she was going to get the help that she needed. She then told me that she sees much of those same mental traits in me and that I need to walk down the same path that she finally got up the courage to walk down. Now, at no time did my mom ever have her own prodigal daughter journey. She just quietly suffered alone for all those long years. Obviously, my dad was there by her side, and even more than that, God was there helping her to get through it and giving her the strength to endure. But now, because she had finally got help, her life was immeasurably improved. I was completely intrigued by her confession, first of all, and then just the clear as day evidence proving that she had gotten help and that it was working. I wanted it. I'm like, yes, sign me up for whatever you're doing, Mom. I want that too. Unfortunately, it would be several years later before I finally did take up my mom's suggestion that I get help, because at that time of my life, when I first came home from Denver, there were circumstances and influences in my life that discouraged me from pursuing this treatment sooner. But I hold no grudges. It's okay. I was not ready to accept the effort that was going to be required, or the help that was going to be required to get me the help that I need for my mental health. Because you see, I had to go through more trials and soul-crushing humblings before I was ready to get that help, before I was ready to allow that help to work. As I said, the conclusion of my last story, my uncle, he came to my rescue, and he played a major role in my road to recovery. Before I left Denver, my parents told me that they were super glad I was coming home, but there was no ifs, ands, or buts. I was not going to be allowed to actually live at home. Because the thing is, they could not deal with my drama, and I would have definitely brought it. I would have definitely brought drama to the struggles that they were in the middle of at that point of their life anyway. There was no way that they could have handled my 25-year-old drug-crazed brain. It just would have made things even harder for them. Now, please hear me. This was not a harsh decision on their part. In fact, it was brilliant and completely in keeping with God's will for my recovery. I am beyond thankful that they lovingly made it difficult for me, that they allowed me, as I said in the last story, to struggle under the shame that I was going through, the struggle under the outcomes and the repercussions of my choices. I'm thankful for that, because it helped tremendously in getting me on that path that God wanted me to take. I also told you in a different story that I asked my mom to remind me once a week while I was still in Denver for that final month that I was going to be coming home, to call and encourage me and remind me. And during one of those phone calls, she suggested that maybe I should call my uncle and see if I could live with him when I came home, to kind of, help me get my wobbly feet underneath me. The reason why she suggested my uncle is because he went through his own drug addiction problems when he was younger. So he had keen insight and wisdom on how to deal with me and my withdrawals. My parents never touched a drug in their life. They would have never had any idea how to deal with me. They would have been woefully unequipped. But And the reason why she suggested that I talk to my uncle is because I had a very deep respect for him. He was a big part in teaching me how to push through the pain and exhaustion to be the best I could be in sports when I was growing up. So my mother's suggestion that I live with him, it was just brilliant. And the thing is, it was her brother after all. So, she knew exactly what was needed. And she's always pretty much implied that I am his twin. It's just brilliant. It was a perfect suggestion. My uncle, he was so instrumental in getting me on the correct path. I don't think I could ever fully express just how important he was in my life. It's enough to say that I'm certain I never would have survived the meth withdrawals if not for his tough love and his know-how for such things. Because you see, I never went to rehab. Not 1 second of my time post-Denver was spent in a Narcotics Anonymous meeting. My uncle never went through those things either. Much of his rehab was spent exercising. And it was that he pushed me towards. He really suggested that I'm at those itching moments of just wanting to crawl out of my skin. Go jog. Go sweat it out of you, boy. I would take him up on that for sure. There was also another key person in my life that was guiding me as well when I came home. He was my childhood pastor, and he is the person I want to talk about next time. I thought about including him in this story, but I want to, give him more time and more space to show how helpful he was. So that's it, episode 26. I want to close up like I always do, just kind of speaking to you one-on-one and just encouraging you to get help if you are struggling from mental health. Do not try to go through it alone. Don't wade through those troubled waters in your mind by yourself. There are varying levels and degrees of mental health. I know that. One size absolutely does not fit all. Some people do not have the chemical imbalances that I suffer with, and thereby they don't need, pharmaceutical help. They don't need antidepressants like I did. I will touch on a different story. Some people, they don't know how to manage the confusion in their mind. They just need someone to talk to. There is great help and there is great value in having somebody that you can talk to one-on-one, somebody that you can bare your soul to and just kind of open your life up to, and allow them to just have access from kind of like a person from the outside looking in. They have some of those times, if you pick the right person, they have just keen insight. And that's what I want to encourage you to do, to find someone that you trust in your life, someone that you love and that loves you, to just talk to. Don't suffer in darkness alone. It's just a waste of time. And frankly, it can become dangerous. It can become as dangerous as playing with a loaded gun. There's no pun intended in that at all. Mental health is not something to play with. Okay. Thank you. Go to my website. If you don't know where to begin at, there's a link on there. If you want to just talk to somebody anonymously, just talk to on the phone, there's a link for that too. I'm going to include that. There's also links to talk that will help guide you through just understanding who Jesus is, which is what I always want to do, is to shine the light on who Jesus is, because Jesus can help you more than being able to talk to anybody else, because Jesus knows everything. He made you. He created you. He knows your weaknesses and your strengths. Believe me, there is no one better than Jesus to talk to. Go to him. Tell him your concerns. Ask him to help you to understand what it is he's trying to tell you. Okay, my friends, thank you. Come back next time and hear how my pastor helped me. He was just, oh man, that man helped me through a lot. I'm very grateful for him. Until then, keep pressing on.